Hi, everyone, and welcome to another powerful conversation with yet another powerful woman. I'm really delighted today to be joined by Krista and for her to share her story because she really is incredibly inspiring. She's been through a lot and is using that to do great things out there in the world. And her area of focus really, really inspires me. So I'm not going to say any more about who she is or what she does. I'm going to hand over to you, Krista, so you can introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Claire, for having me today and the opportunity to share a little bit more of my story. I'm Krista Anderson. I'm the founder and CEO of Healthy on the Go, a natural food distribution and brokerage company with offices in the US and France. And our premier mission is to help create a path to prevention by making healthy foods truly accessible in places where you normally cannot find them. I'm also the author of a book called Claim Your Healing, and I'm living my best life in the south of France, is what I would like to say.
Yeah, I'll start by saying I'm super envious of where you live. I would, one day I will live in that sort of area and enjoy that beautiful light and warmth and everything that comes with being in the south of France.
Yes, we have an invitation. Come visit.
Great. Yeah, perfect. Careful what you wish for.
I know, that's what my friends say.
Yeah. So I suppose I know a bit about your backstory, but the obvious question is, how did you get into this space that you're in about, building or preventing, building a healthier lifestyle so you can prevent bad things, if you like, from happening?
Yeah, so in 2007, I was diagnosed with stage 2 kidney cancer and had my right kidney removed. And then in 2009, it came back pretty hard. It was stage 4, and it came back in my chest cavity, was collapsing my right lung because it was growing so quickly. And the doctors had given me 3 months to live. And as you can imagine, diagnosis like that, you have to ask yourself, what can you do to fight back? What are you in control of? And that's where I started seeing a holistic doctor, learning about the homeopathy, way of living and how to treat and fight the disease through a healthier lifestyle and plant-based diet. So during that journey, I realized how hard it is when you leave home to find something healthy to eat.
Yeah.
So in order to protect myself and to fight against cancer at that time was to bring food with me everywhere, that I knew what was in it. I knew where it came from. And so one day I walked into a gas station while visiting my family in Wisconsin, and I left empty-handed. And I think a lot of us can say we've walked into a gas station with very little choice of what's you could really eat there that's healthy. And so that's where it was kind of a light bulb moment for me of, why is there never anything healthy in a gas station? And I decided really to start creating a solution for that with my company today, Healthy on the Go.
Yeah. And there's so many questions I could ask you. It's like, which direction do I take that in? When you're at that moment, I suppose, either with the first or the second diagnosis, and obviously you allowed medical intervention as well, but how much emphasis or confidence did you place on a holistic treatment to be able to get through through that, and how intensive or mind consuming or day-to-day consuming was that as a journey?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because I know that being in the natural food industry today, you would imagine my stance would maybe be against the medical system a bit. And I really believe that there's a huge need when you have a disease like cancer that's very strong. It's rare you can actually fight against it in a natural way once it's progressed. So I've actually lost friends going this direction. And you need a balance of both. Of course, preventing is the most important, and that's why we should choose to live a healthy lifestyle now, not when it's too late to think about it. So It is very mentally consuming, time consuming, because you really have to become your own doctor and really look and research and learn this whole new way of living. And it is a lot, but it's important. I believe in building the immune system and in creating a space for your body to really have a strength to fight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think another element is also, I think, most of us go around not really being in tune with our bodies and feeling into it, and not observing the response your body has to a particular food sort. I know that I personally, my body knows when it's had sugar, and not in a good way as well, as an example. But I think it takes quite a lot to wake yourself up to being in tune with your body, how your body responds to food, to lifestyle, to any exercise, anything like that.
Absolutely. And it takes a slowing down. And I think this is one thing I realized. I made a vow to myself, which I have failed at since then, but I'm reminded every day is to not be so stressed, to slow down. I mean, stress causes so much disease, the majority of disease really, and to slow down and like to your point is really listening to your body. Like when I have too much coffee, I'm a mess for the rest of the day, like realizing what your body needs. And I think, and that's another thing too, is the future of food is customization, because all of our bodies are different. And that is where the industry is going to go.
Yeah. Have you heard of, I just to lead off that, have you heard of of Zoe in the UK?
Someone just told me about this yesterday.
Yeah. No, it's definitely worth looking into. And I did it, and I was absolutely fascinated, and my husband did it at the same time. And just to understand, I knew that his body responded differently to food, but just to see those differences on how your body responds to sugar, how long it takes for fat to come out of your bloodstream, how healthy your gut is, all of those things are just so fascinating. And I also believe that it is about having a more personalized approach. Although I guess, and maybe this is where an assumption of where you're at, is that there are quite a few things that we can all do to help prevent illness and stress and to deal with all those things. What are your top tips for people in that area?
Wow. I have to say, one of the greatest lessons I've learned in healthy lifestyle is finding balance between work and your life. So for example, after I was healed and when I started my company, a startup, or like any job, you're working a lot, you're stressed, you're trying to perform really well. And what I like to call is kind of chasing after the American dream, this, plateau of success and having things that we're taught by society that is successful. And, I was chasing after that, this fame, this success. I don't really work for money, but, that is a necessity. And what I realized is my life was so out of balance. I didn't have time for friends or family.
Yeah.
I didn't ever sit down for a meal, really. I barely ever cooked. I wasn't taking the time. And I think we're always so on the go. We're distracted by social media, by, keeping up with those around us. But really the true value and essence, I believe, of healthy living, in the greatest lesson that I've learned in that, is being present. And it's, for me, what I've learned from the French culture is this moment around the table that has radically changed my life. And why I moved here was this culture that breeds healthy, balanced living. And it's spending hours at the table with people you really enjoy being with and sharing a good moment. That community, when you look at the blue zones, why people live so long, it's the plant-based food, the red wine, the walkability where they go, the community that surrounds them and supports them. So I think there's a lot to be said about this one moment at the table and slowing down.
Yeah. And I think for me, that moment at the table, that was something that that was one of the gifts of COVID for me and my family, is that it kind of forced us or enabled us as a family, for all four of us to sit down every evening and have a meal together, sometimes two meals together if we were able to have lunch together, and then to even do all those sort of mundane activities afterwards, like clearing the table and washing up and putting things away. Those are all really important times when conversation becomes less superficial and things come up that are really important, and you can have some really discussions and conversations. And I think that that's made us a lot stronger as a family. And that being part of, say, French culture, Spanish culture, Italian culture, are really big things.
Exactly. I mean, it's the slower living. And I think COVID has taught a lot of us just take a step back and reevaluate our life, our careers. Are we doing something we enjoy? How are we living our day to day? And I think a lot of people are, moving out of bigger cities, wanting to be more in nature, to be more connected to themselves. And I think, society has pulled us away from that. And it's hard when I know as an American living in the US, it's hard to live a different way against the grain of a society, but you really have to fight for that and realize that, you can live slower and healthier and balanced, and you don't need a lot of money to be happy. You don't need some big career or title to be somebody. You are enough just how you are and who you are. So it's a mind shift, but I think we're going there in some ways. So
yeah, I think one of the common objections to slowing down is, but I don't have time to slow down. I've got to do this, and this. So what would you say to somebody that says that?
It's a discipline, right? I think I wish I had the answer for this, because I really want to help to more Americans find this, because I didn't know there was another way to live until I had visited the south of France. Now you could visit Italy, you could visit Spain, like you said, some of these cultures that are living like that. I mean, it's just a habit that has to be created, but I think it first starts in the mind to be okay with not striving for something, to be okay in that slower living, that's actually normal. How it's supposed to be.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've certainly noticed on my own journey is that actually when you do slow down and you give yourself time and space, that when you actually go to do something, you're so much more efficient. And you can really then notice, as you were saying earlier about the distractions of social media and having mobile phones around, that we can sit down at our computer to do a task and be so distracted that it takes us 3-4 times longer to do the task than if we were just completely focused on it. Yeah. And I think once you lean into that and start experimenting with it on just simple tasks that don't have a huge impact or consequence of slowing down to do them, it starts to become really, really, really powerful. But it is complete and utter mindset shift, as you rightly say.
Yeah. And it's, what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? Are you grabbing your phone like most people do? And that's how you start your day. That's where your brain, I feel it gets so chaotic, and it takes 15 minutes at least to get into our flow state of creativity, of work, of being really focused. And I think, to your point, we are so distracted by our cell phones, and I have to put mine on airplane often when I'm working, just to focus, because I know I feel guilty when I'm not productive, and that is stressful.
Yeah. And then going to talk a bit about your food concept, about having healthy food that is accessible on the go. What does that look like in terms of where did you start when you were coming up with what the product or the offering was going to be?
Sure. For one, I never had any experience in this industry or business background. I had to Google the information on how to start a business. So if that gives hope to anybody, But what I did was I went to a trade show in the industry and I met with manufacturers and kind of searched and vetted different companies looking for the best of the best and healthy products to my standards. So I don't actually manufacture anything. We partner with brands that we believe in. And then we basically have different merchandising display options, different sizes, different materials for different type of retail environments. And so we started the company in gas stations. So your listeners know it's a selection of healthy plant-based snack products. So it's a selection of about 40 items in different categories.
Wow.
And so we put them in gas stations, airports, universities, hospitals, basically anywhere but a supermarket is kind of for on the go for people to have access to healthy food.
Yeah. And 40, that's like an incredible range. I would be utterly over the moon if I went to a service station. I had a wide choice because, like you say, it's actually depressing when you go into a supermarket and you can't find anything that's not full of sugar and preservatives and ultra processed elements.
Yeah, and we've got products too for people that are gluten intolerant, vegan, diabetic, allergen issues. So we've got a selection that meets kind of everybody's needs, because when you're stuck on the go like that and not having very many options, it's frustrating. So we think about that customer a lot.
Yeah. What's your favorite of all your products, the go-to one, if you could recommend one?
I've got a couple brands. Both of them are women owned. The one is a food bar company out of California called BTR Nation. And she lost both her parents to cancer. And her mission is to transform the vending machine. So she's on this path of creating healthier snack products that are very clean and plant-based. So her brand has been really a great success. And then I've got another company called Daily Crunch, and it's activated nuts. So typically when you eat a nut, you don't get all of the nutrients out of it. If it's activated, it's been soaked in water, all the nutrients are activated that your body will absorb them more. So you're getting more more nutrition from the nut. So it's like, nuts on steroids of nutrition. So having products like this are really important.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And what would you say has been the biggest challenge that you've faced when you've been setting up your business?
Yeah, this is one I'm really passionate about. I just started really coming publicly about is my company, the third year in business. It was like at the height of its success. Michelle Obama had nominated the company for Catalyst for Change for America's Health. It was really a really honorable moment. We were growing really fast across 12 states, starting in Tennessee, moving across the country quickly in these different channels of business. And one of my distribution partners one day decided to take all of my merchandising displays without telling me and putting their own signs on it and changing the product assortment. And they stole about 80% of my company in like a month's time. They went to the retailers offering them a better deal, all of this stuff without me knowing it. And I lost, this feeling of control, right? Of a dream that you've had and you're trying to do the right thing and a good thing for people. And then you have people that are greedy and want to come along and make more money and push you out. And this is the reality of small business versus big business. So I lost everything a few years ago. And I sat in that kind of reevaluating, what do I do next? So that has been one of the most challenging moments. But today I'm rebuilding and is stronger and better than before. And that's what's really exciting.
Yeah. And how in that moment, how did you get through that moment? That's probably a really hard question as well.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do it like maybe a lot of my colleagues in the industry would have just gotten back up right away and started fighting. But for me, this was that moment where I'm talking about balanced life. Is I was not balanced. This was a blessing, actually, because it made me realize all I did was work. I was chasing after something that, yeah, is making an impact, but that's not more important than my personal life and health. So what I did was take a step back. And that's when I decided to move to France, because I remembered this experience I had here and I needed to save myself first and get my feet back on the ground, then start thinking, what do I want to do? Do I want to do this business? Who am I without this title, without these successes? And what do I really want to do with my life? What's that calling inside of me, that desire I feel like I was made to do? And so I sat in that for 2 years and then came back to it with more passion to fight and rebuild in a stronger way. So that was kind of my strategy is getting aligned with myself in a more balanced way.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot in that. And it's one of those things that it's conceptually easy to say, be more aligned with who you are, be more balanced in your life. The words sound, easy-ish, and you can make a nice simple drawing, which I've done before, and that seems okay, but it's a completely different thing to live and experience it viscerally on a day-to-day basis of, what really, really lights you up and what really, really drives you. 2 years is a very long time, isn't it?
That's why I said most of my colleagues, when I spoke to them about it, some of them said, close the business. I had, investors, people that worked in the financial capital industry, looking at the outside of my business and where it was. And they were like, you just need file bankruptcy, close it down.
Yeah.
Your heart's not in it anymore. There's nothing left of it. And that is gut wrenching.
Yeah.
Really gut wrenching. And other people that have had challenges, they're like, this is business, Krista. Business is business. And that's hard, but it's true. And it's sad, but it's true.
Yeah. So how do you have some sort of motto or inspiration that you go to now that reminds you to sort of stay connected to that vision, that purpose that you use now?
Yeah, all my friends know this about me, but it's to squeeze every ounce out of life.
Yeah.
When you've been given 3 months to live, you've, focused on a career and lost it all, that when you can lose everything, the most important thing is living right now, living in the moment.
Yeah.
And making every moment the best. That's really what I try to do. Whether it's a sunset, finding the best table on a terrace of a restaurant with the best view, or just these little things,
Yeah. And again, I think that's also something that's it's something you need to build a habit around is being present, because it's so hard to slow down our minds. They're always chattering and wanting us to worry about what's next, or cogitate over what's just happened and everything. But being truly present is really, really hard. And what incredible lessons you've been given, not the ones that you would necessarily wish on anybody, but it's so inspiring to see the strength that you've drawn from the lessons that life has thrown at you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all go through challenges, right? This life is hard. It's not an easy path, and it's all mindset. The battle is in the mind.
Yeah. 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 And what about on a health level now? What do you do health-wise to make sure that you're physically and mentally that you're balanced?
Well, I have a pretty strong social life, so I'm meeting with people and enjoying nice moments together around the table, having nice meals. I'm a avid road cyclist, so I just competed in my first female cycling race in Stade, Switzerland, which was really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, and really just, putting emphasis on taking the time. So yeah, I live such a balanced life today in that, and still the plant-based diet that I learned from my journey through cancer. So
Yeah. And have, because I used to live in France, and back then the concept of a plant-based diet was just so alien, it was ridiculous. But that has changed in France now, hasn't it?
yeah, I don't know so much about it before like you do, but I would say it's still very Mediterranean.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like moderation. I don't know. I mean, they eat cheese and drink wine and bread, but it's
Yeah.
all of good quality, made local. You can
Yeah.
eat the bread and it doesn't make your stomach this
Yeah.
big, like it's different.
Yeah. No, it's very enviable. So if people would like to find out more about your products, your companies, read your book, any of those sorts of things, what's the best way for them to find you, to get in contact, to follow, etc.?
Sure. Instagram, the company can be found at healthyonthego.us. And I can be found on there with the link to the book is kristaanderson.co.
Yeah.
And then the website, healthyonthego.us.
Amazing. And then we'll put your LinkedIn profile will be on this conversation on LinkedIn as well, and in the show notes. So yeah, have you got any final words of wisdom before we draw to a close?
I would just love everybody in the whole wide world to live their dream life and not be afraid to take the risk to do it. That everything always aligns once we take the leap. So just, making sure that encouraging people to be on that path. You get one life, squeeze every ounce out of it.
I love that. That's great. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely delightful to talk to you today. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire, for having me. I appreciate what you're doing for everybody.